great.
120, 122.
Alaska's popular.
A few more coming in. That's pretty neat. All righty, here we go. Well, hello everyone, and welcome for joining us today for an informative and exciting Princess Cruises webinar. My name is Dean Lapham. I'm the Director of Professional Development here at CLIA, and I'm just going to go through some housekeeping for everyone before we introduce our presenter. So the webinar will run for about 45 minutes, and we will have time for questions at the end. And during the webinar, feel free to enter your questions into the question module. I'm going to keep track of those questions, kind of put them all together and give those to Judy at the end. Just as a reminder, this is being recorded right now, and we will upload it to YouTube on CLIA's global YouTube channels. That will go up right afterwards. We do have some handouts that Judy has on the webinar today, and you should be able to see those in the screen. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Judy Kale, who's going to present to you more about Princess Cruises and the Alaskan adventure of a lifetime. Now, Judy's from Pennsylvania, where she's worked for Princess and Travel Advisors for 39 years. Alaska is her expertise, and she partners with agents to be successfully selling Princess Alaska's programs. That's her passion. So she's personally been to Alaska more than 15 times, Judy, wow. And is delighted to be addressing us today. So without any further ado, take it away, Judy, and we look forward to hearing all about it.
Thanks for having me, Dean. And if you can give me the button to share my screen, there we go. We'll do that, and we'll minimize this and move into the full screen. So, Dean, are we able now to see the full screen We Love Alaska?
We are. That looks great.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, then let's get started. Hi, I'm Judy, and as Dean has said, I've been to Alaska many times, and it's my passion. Today, here's what we're going to do so you know where we're going with this. We're going to talk about Princess and why we've been voted the leader in Alaska for so many years. We'll talk about what cruise and cruise tour itineraries we offer in Alaska. Very important to you, selecting the best itinerary for your clients, and what's new. So that's where we're heading today. So I'm going to depart from my norm and jump right into showing you a promotion that is only available today, and we'll touch on it again at the end when I go through the rest of the limited times. But I wanted to remember this and bring it to your attention now. So today, as you can see, only one day, January 31st, there is a special boost, if you will, called Vacation Day, which offers an additional a reduced deposit, and so that's really a good offer. So if you can sell something today, that's excellent. The other LTOs we'll touch on as we go forward. So we'll start with Princess in Alaska. As you know, we've been voted #1 in Alaska for almost 20 years now. Honestly, that's something that's pretty spectacular. If I were you or your clients, I'd want to know, well, why? What is the significance? Why? And so it's kind of multi-layered. It starts with, we have some incredible ships. In fact, our ships in Alaska are overall the youngest fleet of any line in Alaska. And all of our ships are medallion equipped. And that would be not only Alaska, but anywhere we're cruising in the world, which if you don't know much about the medallion, peek into one source to learn more. It's an incredible system that makes it easier to board the ship, easy to keep track of your family, order things on board, keyless entry to your room, and that's only scratching the surface. So the medallion is a big plus, and fabulous ships. So there's one element. The next is so cool because we own and operate 4 luxury wilderness lodges, and these 2 are the main stay, if you will, featured in every cruise tour. The one on the left is Denali, the one on the right is McKinley, both located in the Denali area. Every single tour goes to the Denali Lodge. Most tours touch on the McKinley Lodge, and both of these are in the Denali area. Then we pop into 2 what I call boutique lodges. They're different for 2 reasons. Number one, they're smaller. The ones I just showed you are hundreds of rooms, whereas these are less than 100 rooms each. That makes them a very intimate experience, so that's very cool. The other thing about this is, just as the Denali Lodge gives you access to Denali area, these two give you access to two other national parks. The one on the left is Copper, giving you Wrangell access, and the one on the right, Kenai Fjords access. So 4 luxury lodges that we own and operate, which is fantastic. And as I mentioned, the national parks is what, whoops, that's a touchy computer going too fast. National parks are what it's all about in your experience of visiting Alaska. And on our programs, you can fit in as many as 4 national parks. You will always, always, always see Glacier Bay and Denali on any Princess Cruise tour, because those are the backbone. And then you can enhance them by popping in Kenai and Wrangell. So we'll show you how to do that. The other element that takes us to the top in terms of the best cruise line in Alaska is our exclusive direct to the wilderness rail service. So this service features open air glass dome windows so that you can see the beautiful scenery. The objective is to go from the ship to the lodge or the lodge to the ship. So it's a transfer, but the beauty of it is we operate this. So we're pulling that engine, and that means we're in control of the time. You can imagine if you have people coming off of a moving ship, people coming down on a moving train, and these two are going to meet, and then they're going to switch gears. Everything has to work out perfectly. So Princess, having control of both of those elements, the ship and the train, make that a fabulous connection, if you will. So again, we have the ships, the lodges, and this rail experience, which all are foundations of the being voted #1 cruise line in Alaska. And then, of course, this is the objective of that rail experience, to get from point A to point B, not missing one iota of the incredible Alaska wilderness scenery. And then last but not least, we've been in Alaska for more than 50 years. Actually, we were almost the very first cruise line in Alaska. I believe our sister company was there a year before us, and we followed in 1969. So we've been cruising there quite a long time. Today, we have immersive Alaska onboard experiences that we call North to Alaska. And these programs really make Alaska come alive on board our ships. So let's take a look. So here's an overview of what some of these programs are about. We keep extending and expanding, but basically we've got naturalists on board 24/7. So they're always doing presentations on the things that interest people who are going to Alaska, wildlife, the geology, geography. They're always there to interact and do presentations. We have axe throwing contests. The National Park Rangers board us in Glacier Bay. We actually bring puppies into the piazza. And Alaskan seafood, and Libby Riddles is the winner of the Iditarod so many years ago. The first woman to win is one of our featured guests in one of our ports of call. So the number of North to Alaska programs are endless, and they really make the Alaska cruise experience come alive. We've also paired up with Animal Planet and the Discovery Animal Planet, and we feature some of the shows that you see on the Discovery Channel, like the Deadliest Catch. And kids absolutely love these programs, and that's important because Alaska is becoming more and more and more multi-generational. The forward button that was working beautifully before won't work at all now. All right, let's try back. Okay, and then forward. Oh, there we go. And so puppies in the piazza. We actually bring sled dog puppies onto the ship so kids and adults alike can play with them in the piazza. You look at these puppies, you can just almost smell their puppy breath. It's amazing. As I mentioned, axe throwing contest. This is quite the rage. If you, even in cities, you see this happening in different clubs and so on. Alaska cuisine is featured on our ships in a multitude of ways. Featured in the main dining room, and our optional dining venues also feature Alaska specialties. So there's no end to the choices of Alaska cuisine on board our ships. The types of things like arts and the crafts and culture of Alaska come alive in these North to Alaska programs. And as you can see, kids are really enthralled with this. This is Libby Riddles, the first woman to have won the Iditarod. It was funny. It was back in the 80s when she did this. And I was, as Dean had said, I've been to Alaska many times. At that time, I was in Alaska. It was easy to buy a t-shirt that said Alaska, where men are men and women win the Iditarod. I still have that t-shirt. But she's our special guest, comes on board, does a nice presentation. She's a very accomplished woman, a great speaker, and I know you'll enjoy her. And she's a Princess exclusive. Again, the deadliest catch. We have shore excursions that you can choose featuring the deadliest catch, and children's programs too. They actually sort out these crabs. I've never done these programs, but the kids absolutely love them. We have a planetarium on some of these vessels, and so of course, you realize that in Alaska, you've got the midnight sun. So looking at the real night sky wouldn't be possible, but there is a planetarium on board where they point out the interesting things in the sky, including you get a feeling for the Northern Lights. While we're on the topic of Northern Lights, I know your clients often ask you, when can I go to Alaska so I can see the Northern Lights? So I can tell you that, no, hands down, the very best time to see the Northern Lights in Alaska is January. As you know, we're cruising in Alaska from May through September. So in other words, during the cruise season isn't the height of the season to see the Northern Lights. On the other side of the coin, you may just catch a glimpse of them the further north you are, such as being in Fairbanks, and later in the season increases the possibility, but it's not something you want to guarantee. It might just be a little snippet. So people who are really passionate about a robust Northern Lights experience really need to see about getting to Alaska in January. For me, my favorite North to Alaska program is Cook My Catch. So if you go fishing, whether it's off the ship on a shore excursion, or whether when you're at a lodge and you catch, as I did, there's my fish caught in the Copper River Basin. And in fact, next slide, I always include this. People ask me this all the time. Did you really catch that fish? Yeah, I did. And to me, that's what is so much fun, are the optional tours. And left to my own devices, this is the sort of thing I would be doing. The types of optional tours and activities you can do in Alaska range from flora and fauna studying to fishing to dog sledding. I mean, it's endless. And I will show you how to guide your clients to looking at what those options are, because in my own opinion, planning your optional tours, whether they are shore excursions or tours from the lodge, is super important to the Alaska experience. So in the case of Cook My Catch, you can ask the tour operator to see to it that the ship or the lodge gets the fish whole, and then the dining room or the chef at the lodge will cook the catch and present it to your group that evening for dinner. I mean, it just doesn't get more celebratory than that. So Cook My Catch is top of my list. So things to know as you think about selling Alaska. The weather is a hot topic, no pun intended. Actually, the weather is very diverse in Alaska. So if I gave you an average, I'd say the average temps when we're there from May to September are the 70s. But here's the caveat. It varies greatly, even daily. So you can see temperatures that range from the 50s to the 80s, and oddly, you can see that in any given day. I remember the captain waking us up one day. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 58 degrees, and we're expecting highs in the 80s. And I'm like, what do I wear? And the answer to the question is layers, which is why when I head to Alaska now, I always carry a nylon backpack, because by midday, half the clothes I had on in the morning are in the backpack. So that's how I kind of do that. And the other thing to know about the weather, when people ask you when is the best time to go, what they're really asking is when is the best weather? Like when won't it be cold or rainy or whatever? There's no predicting that. I recall being there in July once for about 2 weeks. The whole time it was hoovered around the 50s, maybe 60s. It was drizzly. It was the middle of July. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around when you think about what we know as midsummer temperatures. You really have to, I guess, accept the fact that it can vary greatly in Alaska and be prepared for it. Each month has its own highlight, I guess I would say, in terms of best month to go. Like for instance, May and early June are a great time to go because the kids are still in school, so it's a little less busy, and I think overall, I think those can be drier months. So those early times are a good time to go. And another good reason to go, either early or late, is seasonal pricing. In Alaska, the peak pricing is going to run from the middle of June to the middle of August. So anything you're choosing before or after those dates is going to fall into a little bit lower price. So that helps too to understand the seasonality of Alaska. So again, I mentioned that the activities you can do in Alaska are really make the whole Alaska experience come alive. And here you can see a bit of all of it: ATVs, flight seeing, kayaking, dog sledding, river rafting, fishing. It's just crazy endless. And here are some more, really exciting stuff. Zip lining, the Yukon and White Pass rail car that you see there, that's available in Ketchikan, and really a highlight of many people's visits to Alaska. So how do you tell your clients to look at these things ahead of time? Remember that when I'm talking about optional activities, that could be either a shore excursion off the ship in a port of call, or it could be an optional tour out of the lodge. So here's how you approach it. Number one, you go to princess.com, not one source in this case, but princess.com. So what you would do is take a look at destinations there. If you click on that, you see the next slide. And if you look to the right, you can see I've highlighted shore excursions. Understand, when we say shore excursions, we need the ones that are out of the lodges as well. Clearly, Denali is not a shore, but the computer needs a place to tuck it. So these are, I think my next lobby will be to be calling these shore excursions optional tours, and then it'll cover everything. But you'll click on shore excursions on the right, and the next screen comes up where you'll dial up Alaska, and then you'll dial up what you want. If you want to see what there is to do at Kenai, which is what I dialed up, then you would do that. If you want to see what's in Ketchikan, dial up Ketchikan. Whatever you put in there, click view details, and in this case, it's Kenai. And this gives you a great overview of the points of interest of that area. So in this case, it's the Kenai Lodge. Top of the line, you can see Kenai Fjords National Park, and that is in fact a huge highlight in Alaska. And guess what? Spoiler alert, it's one that a lot of people miss because the Kenai Lodge is not featured on every tour. This is a spectacular area. I'll show you a little bit about it as we move on. But these are just the highlights. Then, as you can see at the bottom, if you keep scrolling, you'll be led to the 8 excursions you could choose at the Kenai Lodge. So that is as simple as it is to see what is being offered as a short excursion or optional tour. Again, you go to princess.com and navigate from there. So what does Princess do in Alaska? Well, if you think of it as a bullseye, on the outer rim of that bullseye, the very simplest way to get a taste of Alaska, so to speak, is a round trip inside passage cruise. Princess, of course, does offer them, and we'll take a look at them. And then you'll see how we keep zeroing into the center of that bullseye, where the ultimate option to visit Alaska is the whole bailiwick. But let's take a look at the inside passage cruises. So in 23, this is the fleet that we have sailing there. The little icons just indicate which class of ship they are. So for the Voyage of the Glaciers, we're featuring the Majestic, the Grand, and the Sapphire. You can see Majestic and Grand sail Saturday, Sapphire sails Wednesday. You don't need to memorize this stuff. It's all in the brochure that is one of the handouts that Dean is sending your way. Then round trip Seattle, which again is where we were starting as far as the simplest method of visiting Alaska, is a round trip 7-day voyage. In that case, we offer Royal Princess and Discovery Princess. And the one on Saturday, Royal, features Glacier Bay. By the way, backing up a minute, all of the Voyage of the Glaciers feature Glacier Bay. And then we have a new 10-day San Francisco featuring the Ruby Princess, and a 10 and 11-day featuring the Crown Princess. And so that is the lineup of cruising in Alaska. So here's a deeper look at what's the Inside Passage is about. You can see on the map that they sail from either Seattle or Vancouver. You can't see it on the map, but that is the case. And they basically hit Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway until you get into the longer itineraries, where then a few other ports of call will pop up. But taking a look at what we're seeing here, the Discovery and Royal do the 7-day Seattle with Glacier Bay. and some feature Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier. I think that would be on the Discovery. The Ruby Princess is featuring the 10-day round trip from San Fran, including Glacier Bay, and the Crown 10 and 11-day from Vancouver. In that case, there's some cool, rather less seen ports of call, like Sitka, and another that's I'm thinking of. It's an Indian, native Indian port of call. So the typical ports of call on an Inside Passage are Juneau, for starters, the capital of Alaska. Great wildlife viewing area, specifically that shot up in the left-hand corner, excellent place for whale watching. There are some things like you would have a little cheat sheet thinking, what do I not want to miss when I'm in Alaska? And one of them is viewing whale watching. So Juneau is an excellent place to do that. Also the home of the Mendenhall Glacier. And here, as it says, you can go by foot, by flight, and by sea. So Juneau is a super port of call. Its highlight being Mendenhall Glacier and whale watching. Then Ketchikan. Ketchikan is really rich in native history. It is the salmon capital of the world, and it is a great place to go fishing, actually. And not only the bears enjoy fishing, but the consumers can enjoy fishing from Ketchikan too. And then Skagway is a true gold rush frontier flavored kind of town. And this White Pass and Yukon Rail is not to be missed. Very popular, one of the few narrow gauge railways in operation in the United States. I think the other is in Colorado. And so then the Inside Passage, the 10 and 11-day on the Crown Princess from Vancouver, stops at Icy Strait Point. This is the port of call I was telling you, is very native oriented. So the next way, aside from a round trip, is to do a one-way cruise, the Voyage of the Glaciers. And here's what it looks like. The ship sails between Vancouver and Whittier, stopping in those 3 ports of call which touched on. Glacier Bay is always included on all of our Voyage of the Glaciers. And Glacier Bay is a real important part of a visit to Alaska. So it seemed to me, I had, when I began to learn about this, I thought, if a ship is sailing in Alaska, of course it's going to go to Glacier Bay. Why not, right? It's a highlight. But there is an answer to the why not. To get into Glacier Bay, a ship requires a pass, and not all vessels are issued passes. So in the case of Princess, we have one of the greatest number of passes of any cruise line. Our sister company, Holland, also is heavy in passes, and everyone falls in behind that. So when you're looking at itineraries for cruising in Alaska, watch for Glacier Bay. You'll see a lot of it with Princess. All of our Voyage of the Glaciers feature it. And here's a great look at that bay. As you can see, the ship goes into that bay all the way in and back out, spends most of the day in Glacier Bay. So if I had a small family group and they were looking for a cruise to Alaska, I would recommend a Voyage of the Glaciers, not a round trip Inside Passage. And the reason is the multi-generation opportunity. So here is a perfect example. You've got the father of the middle-aged man whose children they are. Obviously, those are his grandchildren. So perhaps that middle-aged man is still working. He's got kids. He probably doesn't have the time or resources to do a cruise tour, but I bet his dad and mom do. And so if you put this family on a Voyage of the Glaciers, everyone can cruise together on that voyage. You can block group space on that voyage. You can also simultaneously block group space on a cruise tour that includes that voyage. So once you nail down the voyage, be aware of what the voyage number is. Our voyage numbers are 4 digits. That it speaks of volume to tell a res agent a voyage number because it's a secret code. So just remember the voyage number is important, and you'll look for a cruise tour that'll include that voyage number. And I say voyage number because, for example, if you're going to do the land portion first and then the cruise, the departure date of the cruise tour is going to be different than the departure date of the cruise only, and then that gets kind of complicated. So having the voyage number handy is the way to skin that cat. The other reason that I recommend a Voyage of the Glaciers for like the next step up in enriching your Alaska experience is Anchorage. So one end of this itinerary is Anchorage. From Anchorage, you can access, and this map will show you, you can see Anchorage on that map, and below it is a jut of land, and at the end of it, it says Kenai Fjords National Park. So you can actually take one of our optional tours from Anchorage down to the Kenai Fjords and visit this incredible part of the world without even taking a cruise tour. You could just make it like an addition to your vacation. Just what I personally would do when I got into Whittier and then Anchorage, I'd rent a car, I'd drive down to Seward, grab a hotel one night, do this tour the next day, and head back up to the airport, drop off the car, and take a midnight flight home from Anchorage. And so at least I would get some touring in on my Alaska visit without getting deep into a tour. So something to think about. And this is the Kenai Fjords area. This Resurrection Bay is absolutely beautiful. It's an animal, wildlife, or nesting and hibernating area. So you're going to see the wildlife, the likes of sea otters and whales and puffins and seals, and I'm talking in mass. This is not, gee, I think I might have seen a sea otter. It's, wow, there's a whole bunch of sea otters. So this Kenai Fjords National Park area is magnificent, and to try to fit that into your client's itinerary is a really good idea. So we've talked about, you can do a simple round trip cruise, you can do a one-way cruise, and that opens the door to both a little bit of touring, like heading down to the Kenai, or having some parties in the group head out to a cruise tour, and then just be on the same voyage as the cruise only people. And then the bullseye of it all is a cruise tour, and that combines the voyage of the glaciers with rail and land and ship and lodges as well. So the thing about a cruise tour is to know that Alaska is super large. So the only way you're going to get around and see it all is a cruise tour. It's really the only way to see it all. The state of Texas can fit into this area like twice. So this is a big challenge. And Princess has been doing cruise tours for about 50 years, so we're really good at it. And as I said, we own the lodges, so we own all of these elements, the cruise, the rail, the lodge. And again, we're pointing out here, every cruise tour visits 2 national parks, Glacier Bay and Denali. So if I was mentioning the voyage number before, if you want to go look for a cruise tour involving your cruise, know the voyage number, go to the create a group on Polar and pop in the voyage number where I've highlighted in yellow. The line underneath it says to look at the availability chart. If you clicked on that, the chart that I've included in the handouts that you have will come up. And from that chart, you can find your voyage, your ship and voyage number, and the cruise tours that are available connecting with that voyage number. And then you can request group space on one of those cruise tours. And that is, in fact, a bird's eye view of what that availability looks like. Now, in this case, the only one I had handy at the time I did this was 2024. So everywhere you see a date, that's available. So 24 is wide open. But using the example of EB4, if you chose a southbound voyage where people are boarding in Anchorage and sailing down to Vancouver, then the tours that go with it will have a B in the middle, because what it means is the tour is before the cruise. Actually, I had a travel agent tell me once, no, that B means better. Everybody knows that southbound tours are better. When that's debatable, but that is actually something many people do believe. So if it helps you to remember, then it's a good way to remember that the middle letter or digit is telling you the cruise. So that if you took a southbound cruise, that's where you're shopping. If you want to look at tour E, if you used voyage 1417, which is what I have highlighted on the left, then you know that cruise tour begins June 18th, and it coincides with the cruise 1417. So that's how to determine what you're looking for. So we have 4 types of cruise tours in Alaska, and they're listed on the left. And you might notice minimized one, because in my view, it's kind of 3 categories. The Denali Explorer grouping includes something called On Your Own. Then there's Off the Beaten Path and Connoisseur. And on the right, you can see what a cruise tour covers, basically all of the voyage that you see, and also Fairbanks, Denali, and it could include Copper River or Kenai, depending if you choose that. Now, let's talk about Denali Explorer. The Denali Explorer tours will only feature the Denali area. So those other 2 boutique lodges I mentioned at the beginning are not included in the Denali grouping. So these Denali Explorers, you'll see in the brochure, they look a lot like this. They've titled it Denali Explorer Cruise Tours. Again, they feature these lodges, Denali and McKinley, the main lodges in the program. This is where they're located. You can see Denali is, the lodge for Denali is pointing the red arrow, and the McKinley Lodge is just below it. And the gray mass in the middle is Denali National Park. So these two lodges are located in Denali National Park, and they are beautiful buildings. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's the main lobby where you walk in, and at the below is a sleeping room. And again, just a location on the map. This is a large campus, as I mentioned, many rooms, 663. It's a 14-acre campus with multiple restaurants and shops and so on. All of these lodges overlook a river, and as does this one. And there you have a good shot of it. Lots of great dining experiences, fire pits, and so forth. So the properties are truly enjoyable. The McKinley Lodge is the other one on the other side of the park. It's, again, a wilderness retreat. It's off the track about 45 minutes when you get off the train. This lodge was built here because of stunning views of Denali. And again, great things to do there. Fireside patio, theater, the tree house, great light seeing, lots to do at McKinley Lodge. And there's, in fact, a shot of the tree house and some the lectures that go on and so forth. So as I said, these are Denali Explored. So they're going to range in the length of from 10 to 13 nights. And basically they're wrapped around Denali. So you've got at least one night, honestly. I would say almost every single tour features 2 nights in Denali. Not all, but most. And you'll almost always see a night in McKinley. So these are going to be at limitation. And when I say 10 to 13, it includes a 7-day voyage. That if you have someone who has time to do more, you definitely, and by the way, this is, I wanted to show you, this is how you can see the itinerary of a cruise tour. You would go to Polar and bring up that tour and click on the button that says land, and it gives you the land itinerary. So for example, see what I highlighted on the left, it says, you're going to leave Anchorage by coach heading for Denali on Wednesday, June 28th. It's a 5-hour journey. You're going to depart at 8 a.m. because your client may say to you, well, when am I going to get to Denali? I want to know if I can do something when I get there. Yes, you could. Because if you do the math, 8 is 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 or 2 o'clock, they're going to be there. So they're going to get in the middle of the afternoon. They will have plenty of time to do optional tours. And remember, in Alaska, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and then it'll only be dusky. So accessing this information so your clients can know, like, when am I going to get where I'm going is really handy. The off the beaten path grouping in the brochure takes you a step up in terms of the next grouping of cruise tours. Honestly, if I were selling this, I would start in this section. The reason is this section is going to feature these 2 lodges, Copper and Kenai. They'll always feature Denali. You'll never miss that. But personally, I think popping in an experience, including one of these lodges, is a great addition. So I'd be looking at these tours. The Kenai Lodge is located there at the green at Red Arrow. And there she is, a very small lodge, only 86 rooms right on the Kenai River, bungalow style rooms, great fishing, outdoor dining, just a beautiful location. The Copper River Lodge is located where the red arrow is, near Wrangell, St. Elias. Again, beautiful location and great fishing here as well. Lots of optional things to do, including fishing, of course. And so off the beaten path, you see, is going to be a little bit longer, from 12 to 15 nights, and it includes the off the beaten path areas like Wrangell and Kenai. And then last but not least, little known and understood is the fact that our tours are kind of grouped where everything we've just talked about is hosted. That means the meals are not included, it is not escorted on land, and it features the shorter Denali Park tour. Whereas the connoisseur grouping, which we're going to chat about now, meals are already included. It is escorted by a princess escort on land, and it features the longer park tour. Speaking of that park tour, I'll show you what I mean by that. But when someone comes to you and they're looking for the trip of a lifetime to Alaska and they're well retired, they have the resources, you would do them and yourself a huge favor to go straight to the connoisseur grouping and recommend this, because they're taken care of step by step through the land portion of Alaska. This is the experience many well-traveled folks are looking for. So delve into the Connoisseur program. It's a great way to travel. And it, again, the Connoisseur, that's where you'll see the title of it, you'll see in the brochure. Now there is one tour, these tours range from 12 to 17 nights. This is the ultimate granddaddy of them all. Isn't this cool? It's 10 nights, 5 lodges, 2 nights at each lodge, and 7 days at sea. So this doesn't miss a trick. If someone comes in and they've got the means and the time, go straight for that longest tour in the Connoisseur grouping, and they will be very happy, and you will as well. Because when you look at this and you realize that the longer park tour is already in there and the meals are already in there, ultimately that's all wrapped into the price, and you're being commissioned on the total price. So ultimately you're being commissioned on all of those additions in the Connoisseur. So it benefits you as well as your client. So I mentioned the Denali Park Tour. The tours offered from Denali are offered by the park. There are 3 of them. Princess features one or the other. The Denali Natural History Tour or the Tundra Wilderness Tour are the 2 you'll find pepper into our programs. The posted programs are going to feature the Natural History Tour. The Connoisseur will feature the Tundra Wilderness Tour. And by the way, you can customize that if you want. If you do sell a hosted program and you talk about this with your clients and they'd like the longer tour, you can talk with our res, do it by chat and tell them you'd like the longer tour. Can they go get it and price it into your program, and they'll go get it and confirm it for you. And there is a glance at the park. So the first stop, the Talkeetna Rest Stop, that's kind of the short tour. The Stony Hill Overlook is the longer one, and then Kantishna is very, very little used because it's a full day. I will tell you too, for the year coming, there's been a roadblock near Polychrome Overlook, so actually no tour will go to Stony Hill in 2023, and they've just adjusted the 2 tours to accommodate the road space that they have. So they're working on fixing that. So there's a unique situation going on in Denali for 2023 and maybe 24, but who can look that far ahead? So when you're selling Alaska, realize that your clients probably have this mindset. I know I do. To lovers of wilderness, Alaska is one of the most wonderful countries in the world. What they want is to sit down with someone who feels as passionate and knowledgeable about this as they are. In fact, they're not knowledgeable at all, so they're in the dark, but they're passionate about it. So they're looking for an agent who says, I got this, I know this, I can help your Alaska vacation dreams come true. And if you're saying, how do I do that? The answer is go to the Princess Academy. Now, the Academy overall is something you ought to do, but specifically, there's a section in there that allows you to become an Alaska expert. It's in the extra courses section. It's not very long, but it really takes a deep dive into Alaska. And if you do that, you will be an extra, or if you will become an expert. It's 4 courses. It will build your confidence and increase your profits, and you will have a lot of fun with this. There's nothing better than having your clients come back to sit down at your desk when they've come home and say, you really nailed it. And you will be able to do that if you become an Alaska expert. So moving on to how to sell this, you probably realize we have different fare bases. You can choose what's best for your client. You can strip rates right down to standard. It doesn't include anything. Most often chosen is Princess Plus, which is Wi-Fi and a beverage package and crew appreciation. We recently bumped it up to include medallion shipping, a few desserts, some fitness classes, a juice bar, and then we recently introduced the enhanced one. This is like everything but the kitchen sink. So it's everything plus, plus, plus. What I think is the coolest thing about that, at the end of the voyage, you get a memory stick with every picture the ship has taken of your whole family. And for somebody on a family multi-gen vacation, this might be just the ticket. So one source is your place for everything. When you're like, well, where do I find this stuff? The answer is almost always one source. About the only thing, like I said, shore excursions you'll look at on princess.com. So one source is your travel agent advisor center. This is also where you'll find what I call a Google box. This morning I was looking for information about one of those North to Alaska programs, and I typed it into that Google box and it popped up and told me everything I needed to know. So before you hang on the telephone, try Princess Answers. And of course, one source is the place where you access Polar Online. This is where you can get the itinerary I showed you for the land portion and make bookings. get pricing, of course. And you can also chat. So you can polar online chat for booking issues, and you can one source chat for, hey, like, where do I find the availability for 2023 Alaska cruise tours? How do I find that? So stuff like that. So this is a shot of one source. The limited time offers I'm about to show you are all posted there. So don't worry about remembering this. You can find everything on one source under the LTOs. So we saw this one straight away. Today only, there's a 50%, a $50 reduced deposit, and it's called Vacation Day. It does combine, oh, now sorry, I jumped into the agent promo. So we had this once before, we've reinstated it. The sale free is back in place. It's anything you're booking on qualified voyages, and there's a ton of them. There's a PDF on one source that tells you which voyages, but trust me, there's groups of voyages from every type of itinerary. These bookings from January 9 to February 28th qualify you. New bookings made in that period on the qualifying cruises, which you'll find the PDF on one source. And then if you do this, you'll be able to sail free in a balcony cabin. And all you'll pay is taxes and onboard expenditures and crew appreciation and so forth. You can even upgrade if you wish to. And the details are all, again, posted on one source. And on the right, you can see the PDF with all the departure dates. So Denali on sale is brand new. It'll start tomorrow, February 1 through March 1. And it is a great promo for Alaska only, $99 per day plus $150 onboard spending. Every detail you need to know about this promo is posted on one source. And then our overall wave season offer is right here, best sale ever, up to 35% off, $100 deposits, up to $150 onboard credit. And this one's saying if you do Princess Plus, it will include drinks, medallion, Wi-Fi, crew appreciation, desserts, fitness, medallion, little smattering of all. That runs through March 1st. To find more support information about Alaska, you go to one source, sales and marketing, hit destinations, and that'll then hit Alaska and it'll take you there. And then this, again, on one source, if you scroll to the very bottom of your page, this is where you'll find your Princess BDM connection. So I am the Princess Alaska specialist, but you each have a BDM that manages your account. So go to one source homepage, scroll to the bottom, click on the left side there where it says find your BDM, or your rep actually. And then you'll see the next page will say find your business development manager, and each one of those links is active. If you're in the eastern side of the country, click learn more. Their pictures and bio about them and who they are will appear, and you can then be in touch with your BDM. If you feel that your organization would benefit from intensive Alaska training, be in touch with your BDM and ask them to be in touch with me to schedule that, because I'd be happy to do it. It's what I love to do. So this is a lot of work, but before you start into it, don't forget why your clients and you want to go to Alaska to begin with. It really is a land without fences. And the animals, well, they outnumber the people. And the sun, yeah, it does shine at midnight. And the scenery in Alaska is like so awesome and inspirational that sometimes a trip to Alaska can change your life. I know that. That's why I'm here with you today, because that's what happened to me in 1983. And I have not fallen out of love with this place since then. So in the case of Alaska and every fabulous trip, the clients really need to pair with a travel advisor. And if you become an Alaska expert, you will be invaluable to them. And now, if you have questions, as predicted, we have some time left for that. So Dean, can we bring both of us back into the picture so we can address questions?
That was excellent, Judy. Thank you so much. I love Alaska. I've been there 3 times and it's just amazing. And Princess is the way to go. It's great. So we have a few questions that came in for you. First question is for the ships. I'm going to ask you for both, for the ships and the train. What is the accessibility like for people in wheelchairs?
So this is an interesting question. When I began in 1983, it was interesting to me to find that we had a young woman in our staff who was actually wheelchair bound. So she's been with Princess longer than me, and I am 39 years. And the fact that she is part of us for so long, I think has a great influence on what we did. So long before there were rules and laws about accessibility, because we have Jan, she would get on a ship and say, you can't do that, I can't access that. And we would fix it. So we had this like insider, if you will. Later in her career, Jan actually became the spokesperson for ADA accessibility for cruising, and so she got a bigger responsibility, if you will, focused on that. But we, Princess, benefited from her presence for a long time. So we are probably top of the heap in terms of accessibility. You will find accessible cabins on our ships. These tours, remember, I've mentioned we've been doing this for 50 years. So when you think back to the beginning of Alaska cruise tours, who was the audience? It was older, senior people, right? And so accessibility was an issue. And so right from the get-go, we have made it possible. When you make your reservation, you want to make it clear what the needs are of this person. And we'll make sure that we have we put them on a train with a lift, and a bus with a lift, and the lodge with the elevator, and the ship with the, no lip into the bathroom, and everything that's required.
Perfect. Thank you. Is it possible to book only the land portion of the cruise tour?
Well, technically, yes, but I don't know a lot about it. And because what happens is, my and your BDM's jobs are wrapped around the revenue that's generated by cruises and cruise tours. So land only is, well, I'm a seamstress. So if any of you are, you get a piece of fabric and you cut your pieces out, right? And you have leftover scraps, right? Sometimes you can use those scraps for something. I don't know, make a pillow, whatever. That's kind of what happens with the land only stuff. It's whatever's left over. And as I was saying to begin with, it's not popped into your revenue stream and part of your override and your revenue growth. So for that reason, I don't have a lot of information about it. But yes, that you could possibly do land only, and I think if you Google that sort of thing, you'll be led to it. It's not a real robust program, but it does exist because, of course, we're using all these lodges to the maximum benefit of these cruise tours. So we're doing our best to fill every room.
That's awesome. So some dietary needs. If there's dietary needs, vegan, pescatarian, for people, I know Princess has that on board the ships, but what about when they're on board the train or in the lodge?
Because you're faced with a menu on the train or in the lodge, you're going to be able to make choices. But whereas on the ship, like if you're in the main dining room and you're seated in the same place, you can kind of connect with your waiter and he knows your program, and so he kind of takes charge of that. When you wind up on the land portion, yes, we're able to accommodate that, but it would involve a question. For example, my best friend is gluten-free. So even I have everywhere we go, hey, wait a minute, is that gluten-free? And they'll go back to the kitchen and make sure that it is. So there'll be choices that can be made. You'll just have to, ask the question. It's not going to be pre-established because you're choosing your meals as you go. Because remember, most of these cruise tours on land don't include meals. And those that do, like the Cruisetour, they don't include, they cover the cost of the meal and they do it with a voucher, but you're still making a choice from a menu.
Got you. Okay. We have a question about selling solo travel. Are there opportunities for solo travelers to connect with other solo travelers on board Princess?
So we don't have that, but we have something new. If you go to OneSource and you go to that area that I mentioned for limited time offers, and you scroll through all of those limited time offers, posted at the bottom is a PDF of offers for single travelers. So we have begun to keep an updated PDF, if you will, of single travel opportunities. So we don't match people up, but we are building a single fare that is usable, and we pick and choose where we put it, but you can find it on OneSource under limited time offers.
Okay, so kind of expanding on the food, is there a cost for the cook your catch? Is there an additional cost for that?
Yes, there is a fee for that. And honestly, I do not know what it is. And you know what? I want to know what that is. So I will tell you what, Dean, I'm going to go find out what it is. And I'm going to come back and let you know with an email. Perhaps tomorrow I'll have an answer for you because I'd like to know that. Yes, there is a fee.
Right, and if there's any questions that are in here that we didn't get time to, Judy, you'll be more than happy to answer some of those questions. So Judy will have all these questions in a follow-up email. We'll try to get that out to you because we do have who asked those questions. One of the questions came up about becoming a certified Princess TA. How do you go about that process? How would they go about it?
I'm thinking the question is asking how to become a Commodore with our training. So on OneSource, there is a training area. It's under training, and if you click on that, it'll walk you through what it takes to become a Commodore. So it's multiple modules of training that you go through, and you go through the ranks just like an officer, first officer, second officer, and so forth, till you get to Commodore when you finished all of the courses. All the benefits of the Commodore program are also listed for you on the Academy program. And this Academy training program is rated as one of the industry's top training programs. For me, as the person who's focused on Alaska, I really highly recommend that you do the ASIDE program as well, or even start with it if you have a passion for Alaska, which would be the Alaska Expert program. That is separate and apart from the Commodore training, but every bit of it, whether it's the Alaska Expert or each Commodore module, is the way to go to really be immersed in knowing the Princess product.
Okay, so if someone is experiencing a problem with getting access to OneSource, they've sent the paperwork in, what would be the best way for them to get access because they're experiencing a little issue with that?
So what they would want to do is get in touch with their BDM to get some direction on that. And that's easily fixed. And so that would be the way to go. And if they don't have access to OneSource, which is where you're going to go look for the BDM, then I would say if they belong to a consortium or even CLIA may be able to help them. If you can pull up OneSource and click on those buttons and see where this person's office is, where the revenue is tracking, then you'll be able to connect him or her with the BDM. And then you can email that BDM and he or she will direct you to how to resolve that.
Okay. Once you become a Commodore, does it expire or does it have to be renewed?
Has to be renewed. So there's refresher courses because of course every time we come out with a new program we want to make sure you're aware of it, and so we do refresher courses. They're released at certain times, they have to be completed by certain times, and the rules and regs of how to remain active and accredited are all explained on the Commodore website.
Okay. A question came up about accessories. Where can you buy accessories to hold/wear the medallions?
So once on board the ship, there's actually a showcase, and there's a medallion desk, if you will, with a team of folks that are always willing to help, and there's a display of everything you could buy. I do believe they're now making it possible to buy some of this medallion accessory stuff on the Medallion app when you're getting Ocean Ready. Yeah,
Okay.
that's constantly evolving, and I think that they brought that in.
Gotcha. How would I go about booking groups?
Beautiful question. So, well, to follow the train of thought that I had begun with, let's say you have a family and they want to do Alaska, which, by the way, let me say this. I think people come into a travel agent and they say, hey, we want to take an Alaska cruise. That's what they say. But I ask, what do they really mean? And if you turn around and say to them, do you want a cruise tour? I always laugh at this. People often will say, well, how much do you want to spend? And I will always ask the question, I don't know, how much does it cost? So if you ask a person, do you want a cruise tour? They might come back with, I don't know, what the heck's a cruise tour? The thing that will help a traveler to understand whether they want a cruise tour or not is the question, do you want, Judith, do you intend to visit Denali? Or is getting to visit Denali important to you in your Alaska visit? If the answer is, well, of course, why would I go to Alaska without doing that? Clearly, that person didn't realize when they came in and asked you for a cruise, they can't see Denali on a cruise. The only way to get to Denali is with a cruise tour, and only you, as the travel expert, know that. So I suggest keeping this question in the back of your head. Never ask, do you want a cruise tour, but ask, so are you expecting to visit Denali? Do you want to include Denali in your Alaska visit? And that's going to open the door to the cruise tour. So back to having a multi-gen group, deciding to put them on a voyage of the glaciers as a cruise for those people in the group that have the time and resources only really for a 7-day experience. Grab a voyage of the glaciers, and then the handful or so that are also tagged with this group, you can choose a cruise tour involving that voyage number, and everybody will be together on the ship. And then those who can do land will, of course, move together on land if you do the same thing for everybody, which you should. I would, if given that, like say I had 14 people or so, friends and family, I would do just that. I'd book the cruise space for those who want a cruise. I would find a cruise tour using that voyage number for those who want a cruise tour, because you're not really adding a land. That would be almost like adding a hotel, right? And you may realize when you add a hotel, your commission on a hotel add-on is maybe 10%. But whereas when you're selling a cruise tour, that whole fare is commissioned at whatever level your commission level is, which may be as much as 15%. So there's and the other part about being a full solid cruise tour is it's not unraveled. That's the beauty of Princess having all of these elements. We orchestrate all of these things, the ship, the rail, the lodges, so that you're with us the whole way. I jokingly say that means we know where your luggage is, but it's the truth of it, that, you know, we're in charge of all these elements, and it's all bound together with the proper transfers and connections, and all with one family, i.e. Princess. So that's how I would, go about that. So you can, if you're looking for a cruise tour, you grab that availability sheet that I had mentioned you can access, or in fact, Dean, you're sending out a cruise tour availability. In the case of a cruise only, both of these things can be blocked on OneSource, on Polar, I should say. Go to OneSource, open Polar, and there's buttons there, and one of them says block a group. Click on block a group, and you'll be faced with, do you want to block a cruise only groups or a cruise tour? I would start with blocking the cruise only group. Once you've got that confirmed, you'll see what your voyage number is. Using that voyage number, you would do the same exercise and fill in the blanks for blocking a cruise tour that coincides with that cruise. And your BDM can help you more if you really need step-by-step with that.
Well, excellent, Judy. We got a lot of people saying thank you, good looks, good information. Thank you so much. Great. That is excellent, folks. We're out of time. Judy, if there's anything you want to finish with, but this was excellent and informative, and thank you so much. And again, like I said before, we are going to get these questions. If we didn't answer your question today, Judy's going to follow up with you. But thank you, Judy. Any last comments?
Last comment, again, I love to do training. If your organization would benefit from a focused training, let your BDM know that you're interested in that. They know how to reach me.
Excellent. Well, Judy, thank you very much, and thanks for sharing some great stuff about Alaska, and we'll see you up there in the Moose Country. We'll talk to y'all later. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Bye.